Planning your first Camino, you need to be aware of something. There are pilgrims and there are pilgrims, often referred to as us and them, coming right up. So if you're planning your first Camino, I bet you're excited. I just want to highlight something that some first-time pilgrims come across and think about too much. Let me paint a scenario. Maybe you've walked 300 or 400 kilometers already on your Camino. You're hitting the final stages, maybe that just a little over 100 kilometers from Sarria on the Camino Frances. And as you get to those final stages, generally within 100 kilometers of Santiago, it can suddenly get busier with a lot more pilgrims. And there's a very simple reason for that, and that is that most pilgrims only walk about 100 kilometers. Only? That's a fairly long way, isn't it? Why is that? Well, for pilgrims who want to get the certificate from the Pilgrim's Office, you have to walk at least 100 kilometers, or it's 200 kilometers on a horse or on a bicycle. And that, along with the fact that not everybody can take a month off to walk a Camino, 100 kilometers you can do comfortably in a week. All of that leads to the fact that most pilgrims, and I think if you check the statistics, it's something like 70% or so, walk the required 100 kilometers, not more. Okay, so if you are thinking either of walking that 100 kilometers or a much longer distance, I need to make you aware of the us and them phenomena. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's something that comes up a lot with online discussions, and typically it is brought up by somebody who's walked their first Camino, and maybe they've walked from Saint-Jean, so they've already walked 700 kilometers, they hit Sarria, and suddenly, there's this massive influx of new pilgrims. They get called all sorts of terms, short walkers, torigrinos, and there's this danger that the people who've walked a longer distance can somehow look down upon and not value all of these people starting in Sarria. There's this feeling, potentially, of being much more superior in sort of pilgrim circles because I've walked a lot further, I've carried a pack, and all of these newly joined pilgrims are only walking 100 kilometers, and many of them are carrying small day packs rather than full-size packs, and they're having luggage transported every day. Some of them will even have support buses, and all of this kind of undermines the joy and the value of the Camino for this new pilgrim who's walked many hundreds of kilometers, and the stage from Sarria is just their last 100 Ks. And it can kind of throw them off balance. And also when they get to Santiago and the place is a throng of pilgrims and they're queuing up to get their Compostela, and there's hundreds of people queuing there, some whom have obviously done it the easy way, carrying a small day pack and so on. So let me just put your mind at rest. The value of a pilgrim has got nothing to do with how far they walk or how much luggage they carried or had transported for them. Look, I will admit the first time that I walked a Camino was from Saint-Jean, so I had walked something like 700 kilometers until I got to Sarria, and then there was lots of people and the noise and, groups of school kids and, the support buses and all the rest of it. But I kind of knew what to expect. Even then, I was probably put off for a day or so because I'd been used to walking quite often with really no one else around, in solitude, just with my thoughts. It was a deeply emotional and spiritual experience. And then suddenly, I was thrust amongst these crowds, if you like. It can get quite busy on those last sections. And I felt resentful. I'll admit it. I felt resentful because I felt that my Camino was somehow being undermined. You know, the weeks and weeks of joy that I've had, you know, in contemplation and prayer and you know, whatever your Camino means to you, suddenly I was, you know, amongst hordes of school kids and tour groups and so on. That feeling of frustration and annoyance lasted a few hours. Because I recognised that I had absolutely no right whatsoever to feel like that. Anybody who is walking a Camino has as much right, if not more, to be there as I do. People will walk the Camino in many different ways. They will walk it in a way that suits them, that they can manage due to, you know, health, age, fitness, whatever. If you see all the pilgrim statues along the various Camino routes, I don't see many statues where the pilgrim is carrying a huge pack, you know. I think that's a modern phenomenon where we feel that somehow we have to carry a big pack and suffer as we're walking. So look, the main point of this video this week is that if you are walking a longer distance, when you get to the busier final sections, you may get that little pang of, you know, annoyance that somehow your Camino is now being, you know, undermined and it's not, you know, the Camino that you'd experienced to date. Just accept that on many of the routes into Santiago, the Camino Frances particularly, and I imagine to a degree the Camino Portuguese because they're the most popular, just accept that that final 100 metres is very often going to be quite different, depending on the time of year that you're walking. It's different. It's not bad. It's just different. So, like I say, it took me, you know, less than a day, I think, to get over it that first time. And to be honest, I was ashamed of the way that I felt about the other pilgrims that I was meeting. And I decided soon after Sarria that I would accept that this final 100 kilometres was going to be a little bit different to what I'd experienced to date. Not better, not worse, just different. And actually I ended up loving it. I made a point of chatting to some of the newly joined pilgrims, and it's not hard to spot them. You know, you've got these dishevelled people who've been wearing the same clothes for a month, or, you know, carrying two outfits maybe, but they're kind of looking a bit grubby and tired and very tanned and, you know, certainly looking a lot fitter than the crowd that are joining at Sarria. You can spot the difference. And so I made a point of talking to some of those people who had joined at Sarria. I met some delightful people. You know, I met a lady who was guiding her blind husband. I met a wonderful group from the US who actually had a full-size coach, like a 47-seater coach, supporting them. And their team leader was an 85-year-old nun. You know, and every time we came to a sort of coffee stop, the coach would be there and Sister, whatever her name, was there to rally them along. You know, I met people who were walking for all sorts of reasons, for grief, or, you know, relationship breakups, for charities. I've met groups of people in wheelchairs, you know, lots and lots of really amazing people. So why did I feel compelled to talk about this week? Because it's come up a few times. I've seen the question come up a few times online. I raised the question myself in 2015 when I walked my first Camino. You know, oh, is that last 100 kilometres really that bad? You know, and I was trying to think of ways around it and all the rest of it. Don't, just go with it. And if you're walking only the final 100 kilometres, just accept that section. I think the last 100 kilometres on the Camino Frances is one of the best sections. I love it. I've walked it 3 times. Twice, you know, having come from Saint-Jean, and once, you know, having done another, I don't know, 50, 60 kilometres prior to Sarria. I love that final section. I love the towns and villages and the landscapes. And mostly I love all the other pilgrims, you know, as long as there's not thousands of them on the same part of the trail as me. So yeah, if you're walking a much longer distance, accept it's going to be different. embrace it for what it is, embrace the new pilgrims, for who they are and for why they're walking. And they're walking for an amazing range of reasons, and if you are walking those final sections only, know that you are as much a pilgrim as anybody who's walked 1,000 kilometers, 2,000 kilometers or whatever. It's not how far you walk, it's not the burden that you carry, it's what's in your head and what's in your heart that makes you a pilgrim. So, yeah, let me know if you've come across those sorts of emotions and challenges. Maybe if you walked a much longer distance, did you struggle a bit in those final sections? If you walked purely those final sections of 100 kilometers or so, did you get any nasty remarks from people who'd walked a much longer distance? I hope not. I hope not. But it's an interesting phenomenon. You often get these us and them discussions online. Hey, we're all pilgrims no matter how far we walk, whatever burden we carry. So just a thought, particularly as you might be planning your first Camino. Just accept that the journey can be a little bit different depending how far you're walking, the particular section you're on. And that's the beauty of it, because we learn from all of that. So thanks for watching. See you next week.